Hello, guys. It's me, Peter Klin, or Piotr Klin, for the Polish listeners. Just a small, short preamble before we start the podcast. So, this time round, it's a podcast in English. Well, I mean, our guest speaks English, and I'm just trying to fake it until I make it. Apart from that, don't worry. The intro to the podcast is Polish. The outro is Polish, and the whole conversation I had with our guest is in English, so don't tune out when you hear strange sounding words. That's of course for the English speakers. For the Polish speakers, unfortunately, only the intro and the outro are in Polish, and the rest is in English. So if you're not too into the whole speaking English thing, I'll try to, once I get back from Mexico, I'll just try to translate it and do a Polish version for you guys. So, well, enjoy. I know I enjoyed it. So have fun and talk to you. See you later.
Podnominał cast. Lek na kolarski ból dupy. Dawkowanie. Raz na jakiś czas. Tematyka. Rowery, bajery, ogóry, grand tury, waty, laktaty. W razie wątpliwości skonsultuj się ze swoim influencerem lub cyklomavenem. Słuchasz na własną odpowiedzialność.
Exactly. So it's the medicine for the cycling butt hurt, and if it's medicine, it needs to be administered. It needs to be administered by a self-proclaimed pseudo-professor of cycling. It would be me, Piotr Klin. And you know that we are the podcasting pro tour, so we had a lot of guests. We had the king of power making his own power meters. We had a UCI coach, UCI director sportif, but today we are going international, and not only international, intercontinental, really, because we have a rider who, well, if he was into motorbikes rather than bikes, I would say he would be an equivalent of somebody who hangs out with Hells Angels from Monday to Friday and then does MotoGP on the weekend. So a gravel rider extraordinaire and a former and, fingers crossed, future pursuit our holder 4K, Ashton Lambie. Hello.
Hi, how's it going?
all good. So you're our first international guest. So now we'll be just basically listened to all over the world. And I have to ask you first of all, how does it happen that you go from riding 200 miles on a gravel bike to the track, which is almost like a laboratory? Or well, which way was it really?
Yeah, it was definitely like gravel and ultra distance first, and then I got into the track. I was living in Kansas at the time, and so that was kind of an epicenter for gravel, just the gravel boom in the US that's just really taken off over the last 5 years. And I was working at Sunflower Bike Shop, which was, huge in the gravel community down there. And I did that, ultra distance stuff. And then I got on a grass velodrome that we have down in Kansas that's still pretty active and makes me really happy every time I see, they just had state championships a couple weeks ago. And I was like, oh, damn, that's cool. So I got started there and then did some entry-level domestic racing in the US, with hopes of getting my Cat 2, basically my domestic license high enough that I could race at nationals. Got that, raced at T-Town during the summer, and then won my first national title in 2017. And got started racing with the national team and doing, the World Cup circuit and that whole annual circus of international track racing for the past 3 years with the U.S. national team.
And could you clarify, because in Poland it's slightly different. You either have a elite license or a master's license. So what do you mean by going from categories?
Yeah, so in the U.S. you have different categories for different license, or you have one license, but you have different categories for different disciplines. So I'm a pro for track discipline. I think I'm a category 4 mountain biker. So you have the highest category would be pro or category 1. And then if I were to go start off on the road, I would be a category 4. And so you basically do enough races. The races have to be a minimum field size. So you, depending on to go from your Cat 4 to your Cat 3 on like the road, you just have to do 10 races. So it's like, just show us you know how to race a bike, and you can do 10 races in a year, and then you can race category 3. So like, it's kind of a system where you have more experienced riders that get to race and have like a level of safety, you know, so you're not going out and you're an experienced cyclist and you're not racing with some dude in cut off jeans, like on a mountain bike, because it's his first road race ever. You know, like it's a little bit of safety and a little bit of like, okay, you've proven that you can do bike, like you're competent in a peloton, in a field, and that you can do these higher level races.
Okay, so it sounds like a good system, especially nowadays with a lot of people doing Zwift and then jumping out, because you can have good legs and
absolutely
zero kind of track aware, well, not even track, but group ride awareness.
Right. So at nationals, anyone can show up and race like timed events. So anyone can show up and race the kilo, the IP, and get a flying 200 time. But you have to be on the track. You have to be a category 2 to do mass start events. So you can't just show up like with your track bike that you got on the street, you know, on your fixie, and go race the scratch race. Like that's I think we all agree that's a terrible. Nobody wants that. So like it makes sense. Yeah.
Well, people who put together YouTube video clips of track crashes want that, I would imagine.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
From that, it would be hard. And getting back to you, because what I see really interesting, as you said, you started with like the gravel community, gravel races, where now it's quite advanced and people start looking into things like aerodynamics, like
on the gravel, you mean?
On the gravel, yeah. But when you started, I would imagine that's what brought you into the ride, that you can go into the almost the unknown and ride across, you know, large distances. So now, how did you basically then said, okay, I'm gonna go to 4K and then check air density and check lap times and all of that? So what's that transition like?
It was pretty different. I mean, you know, there's definitely a checklist of stuff for gravel racing and any kind of ultra distance. You know, like I've always been a big proponent. Like people don't, you know, some of the longest races I've done are like around 600K. I've done a few of those, and like people don't not finish those because of like tired legs. You know, people don't finish those because like they brought the wrong jacket. They, you know, you didn't look at the weather. You didn't look at the course. You don't have the right parts or the right equipment, or, you know, you took a wrong turn. So it's kind of that like that same sort of, let's try to be prepared for as many things as we can and like look at every aspect of it, you know, not just the training, not just the equipment, not just the logistics, but like try to look at, you know, a big challenge holistically. You know, if you show up to the track and you do all the right training, but you have shit equipment, like you're not going to go fast. If you show up and you have great equipment, but you ride twice a week, you're probably not going to go fast. You know, you still have to kind of look at it holistically and be like, okay, how do we bring all the parts together to make the desired outcome? You know what I mean? So that's kind of the same thing as far as like, you know, looking at ultra distance and then shorter distance, just different training.
So talking about that holistic approach, so what, so you said, well, you've started with the track in US, but in 2017, your first national championship. So what kind of progression, what did you learn? Because along the way, because I know that you've visited the good old UK to look for some gains. So what was the start, and then did you have like a sudden eureka moment, or was it just like getting those information and accepting them and putting it all together, adding?
I think it was kind of like putting all the pieces together. You know, I learned a lot training with the U.S. national team and just, you know, spending time practicing something that's new is obviously going to make you better. So it's not necessarily practice makes perfect. It's also like good practice makes perfect. You know, if you're just on the track but you're doing crappy workouts, like you'll get a little bit faster. But again, you know, trying to look at all the pieces of the puzzle that I knew, that I didn't know about, and even the ones that I knew, like maybe there was someone who knew more than me. And that's kind of what led me to the Who Bought Bike team. I saw them race in Minsk, I think was the first time we were in Minsk. And then ended up chatting with them a little bit in Milton, I think the next season. And then went and raced with them, you know, for the next 2 seasons and learned a ton about aerodynamics from them. I mean, obviously Dan especially, like, you know, optimized my position. So I gained a ton of just like straight up knowledge from him of like, oh, this is some better equipment you can use. This is what your position should be, you know, just that kind of optimization. And then also like how to test and how to learn all that stuff and how to try that stuff. And like learning about different pieces of the puzzle that maybe I didn't even know existed. So, I mean, that was pretty eye-opening. And then, yeah, just all the race experience with the national team, you know, getting to try to go to, you know, through the Olympic qualification process, learning how to, you know, like navigate a national team structure and, you know, be a part of a team like that doesn't really exist in gravel. So, yeah, I mean, there was a lot to learn. It was super fun.
And in terms of, because you mentioned position, but I can tell from working with people doing time trials, it's not only finding the best position, but did you have to then change your off-bike training and preparation to be able to adapt to that new fastest position? Because the fastest position is aerodynamics, and then again be able to put the power down.
Right. It is a little bit like it's not just the position, but it's also being able to put the power down. It's not just CDA, it's watts per CDA. There were getting used to that position. I remember it was like after our London World Cup, like I started having probably the worst neck pain I've ever had in my life. And working with my strength coach, Christelle Sega at Athletic Strength Institute, we ended up like doing actually some neck specific exercises, but also some sort of like upper back, you know, upper trap, like remedial exercises that are still kind of a regular part of my routine, that just help keep that all healthy. Because like, if you can hold that position, that's great. If you can generate power in that position, it's even better. And if you can do it without injuring yourself, like that's the ideal, you know?
Well, yeah, I can kind of agree. Especially, I remember during my first hour attempt, 2018, my head just dropped after 20 minutes. I just couldn't see anything in front of me. So that's
Schirmer's neck is a real thing, man.
So lessons learned. But then, because not everybody, well, I know a lot of people know about it, but you are looking to attack the pursuit world record.
Yeah.
You want to go under 4 minutes. So now, if you could just tell us a bit on what kind of equipment, what kind of changes have you implemented for this attempt this time around, or what things stay the same?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the training has been quite different. Like I'm doing, you know, again, working with Chris at Athletic Strength Institute, we came up with like sort of what we're calling like middle distance running training program. So it's a lot of really specific anaerobic power, anaerobic capacity efforts where I've been doing a lot of my training on the track bike, but on Zwift. So I just put it on erg mode and then do, you know, the power that I need to do for those efforts. It's a really controlled on-off interval set, you know, like changing the rest intervals is huge. Changing the work intervals is huge. Changing, you know, being able to change like within 5 watts is huge. And doing all that in the track bike position, you know.
And is it, sorry to stop you, but here, is it an idea behind growing that anaerobic capacity in order to fight a bit of that lack of oxygen at Mexico? Because then the bigger anaerobic bank you have, the later it will hit you.
Well, a little bit, but it's also like, I mean, with the speeds, you know, you're going at a 4K, like the whole thing is anaerobic, right? Like no one has an FTP of 500. So, I mean, you're not riding it aerobically. You're going to be dipping into some level of anaerobic for pretty much the entire ride. So it's sort of modeled after like the training that you do as a mile runner, which is the same distance event. Like those guys don't go out and do 2 or 3 hour runs on the weekends. So I've cut that out and done a lot more intervals and a lot more gym work. That's basically the biggest difference I've made in training. And then I've been with my partner Christina in Montana. So we've got a great environment up there that's at a little bit of altitude. It's like 4,500 feet, like 1,500 meters. Yeah. And then we've got our own gym up there. So we've got a good gym set up. So like that's been the difference in training, is just having all that stuff and a good system for that. It's also hot, so we're getting the heat acclimation. And then, I'm on some sneaky new equipment that's on its way here. I mean, I love doing that. Like, you know, that little bit of morale, like you get a bunch of new stuff the last day and you're like, I can't.
Yeah, so you can just, you can put, so same for me, I'm just leaving like a sock off or whatever.
Yeah,
so even the
just
shoe covers.
leave a little bit in the box for, for race day.
Because
Yeah.
I think that there are two different types of people. Some that just want to make sure and test everything to the nth degree and then just start on it, and people who will just basically leave one bit of new stuff. But as you say, I think certain things you can leave to the last moment.
Well, there's certain things you can test. Like today I wore a Vortex suit. I'm going to have a different one for race day. But I wanted to wear the Vortex suit because it's like a little bit different chamois than the kits I have. And so I was like, well, how's that saddle height feel with, a different chamois? So like little stuff like that, I want to test that.
Yeah, exactly. And I know what you mean.
Yeah.
So after, because I know that you've already, when you said about your preparations, that you don't go for 3-hour rides on the weekend, but I heard that you go for, what was it, 100 or 200 mile ride around Iceland?
It was only 100K.
Oh, only 100K. Okay.
So that was like the last kind of big long ride I did. And I remember asking the organizer, because we're like Lauf's a great sponsor for us. And we were at dinner and I asked the organizer, he was like, oh, none of you guys are signed up. And I was like, can I sign up for the 100K? And he's like, oh my gosh, this is unbelievable. Like, you're not doing the full. And I was like, dude, it's like the training's really important. Like, it's not in the books right now. I can't go out and do an 8-hour day. Like, that's just, the day before the race, I was doing 3x4 1 minutes or something, like just full gas. And I was like, yeah, that's not what I'm doing right now. And he was like, okay, I mean, if you really want to. I mean, it was nice. Like, it was good. It was good to do like a nice, long ride and kind of decompress. 4 days on the turbo a week gets pretty grim.
Oh yeah.
So it was nice to get out there, and like Iceland was beautiful. The Rift was awesome. Like, yeah, it was fun.
And what about you as well? For those of the listeners who follow your Instagram, you said that to decompress. So I saw some handy woodwork as well. So what's that story?
So me and Christina bought an RV because we're staying on her family's ranch in Montana, and it's a pretty small house. So it's kind of like a bring your own bed situation. So we bought an RV. It had some water damage, and by that I mean it was incredible water damage. Like the whole front end was trashed. So we've been slowly rebuilding that. Christina's got like a real good eye for design and stuff. And I've got a small background in woodworking, not this kind of like finished carpentry, like the door. I'm guessing you're referring to the door that we did. Yeah. So like that was way out of my comfort zone. I was trying so hard to do a good job and like kind of making it up as I went, and but the door, like the whole idea of the door, like with the nice little angled panels and everything like that, and the stain, like all that was Christina's idea. Well, so she like, we kind of talked about it and she drew it out on paper, and I was like, well, yeah, okay, I think we can do this. And then like, I kind of do most of the building. She helps with like the measuring and the staining, and like, it's a good like, you do it for 3 hours and then you're like, oh, I do have to race bikes. Like, but it's nice to be able to kind of forget about it in a while, and like work on some fun team projects like that. Like, it's a really nice, change of pace. Like, I think it's not healthy or good to think about bikes 24/7.
Yeah, it gets kind of gets into your head. Kind of
and the door looks awesome. Like, we've got the cat door in. The cat's figured it out. Like, it really takes the trailer. And the old door had blown off because it was water damaged, and like we were driving down the highway, and Chris was like, oh my God, stop the car. And I look out and there's like a 2x2 like just sticking out of the side of the trailer. And basically the outer fiberglass sheet had just like ripped off the door. Yeah. So it took longer than we wanted to rebuild it, but like now that it's done, it looks super nice. It fits great. Like we're both pretty stoked about it.
Well, I think it's the same with all those projects, isn't it? And you say it took longer.
Always takes longer.
It always takes longer. I think that's when we are talking about aerodynamics. People think that, I'll just go to the track, I'll just test a couple of things, and I'll know everything. But
I'll go to the wind tunnel once, and then I've gone to the wind tunnel. I'm tested. I'm done. I'm aerodynamic.
Because I know that you said that that's what happens with the Team US, that they will send somebody from the pursuit team to the wind tunnel and say, okay, so that disc is fast, this Kinsus is okay, so then we have a team basically kitted out.
Right, and I mean, to some extent, like if that's what your resources are, like that's better than not doing it,
But when you look at because that's the thing, when I was looking at the Danish team at the Olympic Games, and everybody was raging about the tape on the shins. But for me, it's not the case that they use the tape. For me, you just need to take a step back and look and understand how many hours, how much time they had to test everything to get to the point of let's test shin tape. because if you have to test helmets, if you have to test skin suits, if you take hand position, crank lengths, even for the team pursuit,
it's a lot of testing.
It's a testing of who's going before who in terms of minimizing the drag of the overall team. So once you appreciate how much testing went into that, so that was for me the biggest wow moment. Not that they got that, it's just that they had time to even test it.
Everything.
So it's crazy, and that's also, for those of you who don't know, that's also Dan. So basically the guy behind Hub Worldbike. Did he try to talk you into the hour? Because I see him, his girlfriend, they are deep into the hour. Did he try to?
We talked about it, but I mean, I don't know. I just kind of wanted to focus on the pursuit. I think he's got a good shot at the hour.
Oh yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Well, the problem, so we might tell the guys who didn't hear about it. So Dan will be attacking, but he will be attacking the Wiggins national record at the moment, because the problem is, for the world hour record, you need to have the biological passport. You need to be registered with UCI and have the full kind of license. So that is the biggest break for Dan. But I think he did somewhere close to 54.8 at sea level at a dodgy air density from a flying start in Denmark. So that's going to be interesting to. Well,
he's been putting up some good, even just in training efforts. I love that he puts those up, and all the specifics. I'm a big fan of that too. It's okay, here's all the training I do. I don't get why people are so secret about gear inches.
Yeah. I mean, to a certain extent, I don't understand that as well, because if he puts out his ride with all the info, I can only have a look at it and work out that his CDA is some kind of mid 0.16s.
Well, he'd probably tell you his CDA if you ask.
Yeah, but then it's just a case of, so what? So I know it.
What do you do with that data? It's you put the same gear on, you're probably not going to go the same speed, man.
Yeah, exactly. Or, the same helmet and the same bike, but you won't have a CDA like that. So
Right.
I'm on that same side where people get really secretive about it. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Now, hopefully this is Wednesday is the hour, not the hour. I say hour because it's just thinking about myself. I'm selfish. It's the pursuit attempt, and what the season holds for you after Wednesday.
So after Wednesday, I mean, Christina's going to be here, so we're going to go to Gravel Worlds. Tongue in cheek. It's not really like a UCI World Championship, but that's the one I was telling you about, where they give you a rainbow jersey with the colors in the wrong order and a pirate sword. So that's in Lincoln. So we're going to go there, visit my grandparents, and then we fly back to Montana. And then basically the only other big thing on the season for me is World Championships, wherever those end up being.
Oh yeah, because that's an interesting story as well, isn't it?
It still says Turkmenistan on the UCI website. I've heard Glasgow. I've heard Roubaix. I honestly don't know. We'll figure it out.
That's a really interesting approach from the UCI, where they just pick Minsk and Turkmenistan. Even if they now change to Bolivia, it wouldn't surprise me if they picked that as a great venue.
I'd be okay with any of those. I've never been to France. I've never been to France before. Glasgow's an awesome track, and like I really like that town. And I mean, Turkmenistan would be
interesting.
It would be a lifetime experience, man. Like
you
I've never been to that part of the world. It sounds cool.
You would have to watch out because I think that they've legally banned using the word COVID. So they don't have COVID.
Oh.
Yes, they only have a higher rate of pulmonary diseases and people under respirators, but there's no COVID. Because I think it was caused by a sandstorm and some toxic dust from the deserts. So you would have to watch out for the
Great
toxic sand.
See, that sounds like a fun trip, man. Like I'd be into that. That sounds awesome.
Oh yeah. So I need to ask as well. So this is the question that I've had from my listeners. What's the story of the bicep tattoo? That we'll make a photo, and for the listeners, it's going to be on Instagram. So you need to.
Which one?
Which one? Well, the Polish one.
Oh, the Zapiodalak. That was, I got one. So I like to get tattoos when I travel. Like I usually find an artist somewhere. And there's a lot of artists in Europe. Like Warsaw is, kind of an artsy town. And then so when I was with the national team, like pretty much any time we were in Europe, we had a father and son mechanic and soigneur team that the USA national team would work with. And that's what they would always tell us. Like when we'd go up to the starting line, they'd be like, hey, Zapia Dalak. And we'd be like, okay. And like they kind of told us what it meant. And so yeah, I just went to this tattoo artist and picked out this thing from his flash. Like it was a pre-made, for those that don't get tattoos, artists a lot of times have flash, where it's just like a pre-made drawing. And they're like, oh, I like this. I drew this and I like it and I would like to tattoo it on someone. Like if you want this as a tattoo, it's this amount of money.
I'll just add for the Polish listeners, it's a Polish Kia Ceed police car on fire.
Yeah. And so it was just like, oh, a car on fire, like that's fast. It's not like an anti-cop thing. Like I think a lot of people have gotten really hung up on that, and I'm like, no man, it's just a fun Polish word that like kind of means something to me, and I like it, and I thought this was a cool piece of flash, and so I got it.
It's just because that's, people try to then, so this is a coincidence, but people then kind of go deeper and deeper. There was a Polish movie where police stops a guy on a motorbike going really fast.
Yeah.
And then the guy says, well, I was going fast because I like going full gas. And he uses the same word as your tattoo. So maybe people thought that it's linked to that movie. So
I didn't even know that movie existed until right now.
So there you go.
Literally just because of the Polish mechanic and Swanee. I thought it was funny. I always liked it.
And as we are in those kind of slightly not that close to cycling questions, what's the story of the Instagram handle? Because then that's as well, it's not like a
standard.
Yeah.
So when I worked at Sunflower Bike Shop, it was still like in the days of paper tickets. And so like if you brought your bike in and you were like, oh, I want a tune-up, I'd like get your information and fill it on a sheet of paper and then stick it on your bike. And then if I did the work, I would sign it. I would go I'd put the date, like 12/8/AL, so that like everyone in the shop knew when I did it and who did it. So if they were like, oh, this bike, was supposed to have new handlebar tape and it doesn't have new handlebar tape, I'll ask Ashton because he did the tune-up and tell him to put handlebar tape on it or whatever. Or like, oh, did you call this guy already? Like I would put called, date, and initial it. And so I would initial everything AL. And when I first started there, they were like, oh, what's Ashton's last name? And a good buddy of mine who I worked with there was like, I don't know, it's probably something stupid like Longbottom, like Assy Longbottom. And so it was just like Longbottom for a while. And I wore a lot of Hawaiian shirts. Like I still have quite a few Hawaiian shirts that I wear pretty regularly. And so then it sort of evolved into Bahama Longbottom. Because like the shop didn't have AC, or did have AC, but like we didn't really turn it on unless it was like crazy hot. Because, people were walking in and out all the time. It was a big old store. So I'd just wear Hawaiian shirts to work every day.
There you go. So
no dress code at a bike shop.
So that's that's for those of you who don't have Ashton on Instagram. It's Bahama Longbottoms. You can you can see his face on the photo, so you'll know.
Yeah,
his
you'll
mustache.
know. You'll know.
His mustache, so you'll know. Okay, so I've got to finish off. I've got a couple of questions, like a quick fire question round. Or something
yeah,
like
do it.
Okay, so first of all, cargo bibs or a Vortex skin suit?
I've never worn cargo bibs.
Okay, so we'll go with skin suit then.
Yeah, I'm probably more of a skin suit guy.
Team pursuit or individual pursuit?
Oh, I don't know. I do like a team pursuit.
Unbound gravel or track world championships?
Depends on where Track Worlds is.
I like that you're not really answering those questions, but good. That's
I would say Unbound. Like, I like the people at Unbound. It's always really fun. Yeah.
Football or soccer?
Soccer.
Messi or Ronaldo?
I don't know. I'm not that into soccer. I'm not that into football.
Okay. So 3 to 5 watts or 7 to 10 watts?
Oh, 7 to 10.
Exactly. 359 or 401?
Hopefully 359.
Ghana or Lambie?
I don't know, man. Ghana's really good. If I were betting, I'd bet on him probably.
Thankfully,
he's got an Olympic gold medal. I don't.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And world championships.
Lucky.
Oh God.
Let's say lucky. Thanks for that. So Ashton, all the best for Wednesday. I'll be here to maybe create a bit of a swirl before you ride.
That sounds great, man.
And then hopefully we'll stop that. I'll be stopping that clock on the sidelines as well. Hopefully at 3:59 something. So
perfect.
Good luck.
Thanks you. Thanks.
Podnominał cast. Lek na kolarski ból dupy.
O Jezu, dobra, już popuszczam.